So recently an article released by former developer at Bethesda, Nesmith, who has been speaking up a lot recently in regards to his time at Bethesda. Now in particular, this article was about how Starfield was apparently a good game let down by space being inherently boring. Yes, the same space genre that included Mass Effect, Star Wars, Star Trek, and so many others. He then stated in another article that if Starfield had been released by a studio other than Bethesda, it would have been received differently. Now, a lot of mixed emotions coming out of this, and personally I think you guys need to stop bullying this really small company Bethesda who just try their best to put something amazing out for us every single time. But to get to the actual point, it seems like a common theme has made its way all the way into 2020, and that is the fact that Bethesda just can never admit that they screwed up. They always like to deflect blame anywhere else that they can other than what they are releasing. In all fairness though, Nesmith did humbly admit that he didn't think the game was in the same caliber as Fallout or Skyrim, so it's nice to see that there's at least a little bit of self-awareness in Bethesda still, formerly at Bethesda I should say. Now the reason I wanted to pinpoint this article today because it really did show the mentality over there at Bethesda, that mentality that is going to hold them back for years and years to come unless they can adopt a new stance. And what that mentality is the fact that they just think everything they put out is absolutely flawless and can't be improved upon. It's when you put in the bare minimum effort and then sort of complain that fans are judging your game too much or that space is the reason your game didn't do well is the entire issue with your company. Bethesda have seemed to have adopted this sort of victim mentality where they feel like if anything they put out is actually bad when in reality it is, they're getting attacked for no reason whatsoever. Now before I break down these articles a little bit more, if you do enjoy videos just like this, please be sure to consider subscribing. A very small percentage of my watchers are subscribed, so hopefully we can get that changed today. So when Nesmith was actually asked what went wrong with Starfield, they did show a little bit of competency and actually pointed out that the planets started to feel very samey, and you don't feel the excitement on the planets, and that is to me where it falls apart. I mean, it doesn't really take a genius at all to figure that out, so I'm not too sure if he's had this realization before or it actually took them 3 years to understand that maybe this was a problem in our game that would make it slightly boring. He continued and said, I was also disappointed when pretty much the only serious enemy you fought were people. There were a lot of cool alien creatures, they're like the wolves in Skyrim. They're just there, they don't contribute, and you don't have a variety of serious opponents that are story generators. So maybe I'll have to take back the lack of self-awareness now because it seems that maybe they completely pinpointed exactly what went wrong with this game. So if you're sat there getting excited, well, oh, Bethesda are actually so incompetency, they're actually able to identify where they went wrong to improve in the future. Well, no, this is just Nesmith talking about that, and funny enough, he isn't employed by Bethesda, he doesn't work for Bethesda anymore, so you can forget that. And even if some of the employees did identify issues like that, let's be honest, I'm sure it's going to be ignored. The real problem here is that Bethesda went from handcrafting breathtaking valleys full of life around every single mountain in Skyrim, each having unique dungeons that you could explore, different secrets, different lore, and when you then flip it over to Starfield, you're kind of just endlessly walking looking for the same outpost that you saw on a previous planet, with obviously nothing really unique other than the fact that it's just all procedurally generated, so you know what's gonna come at you, especially with the enemy typing as Bruce had previously mentioned. Listen, you always have to appreciate when a company tries to do something different and tries to expand their genre. We've seen it in CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk when they put that out for the very first time. It was completely different to what we had seen them do previously with the games like The Witcher 3, but they stuck to their roots, they stuck to their guns. They made amazing handwritten RPG content, amazing quests, amazing world, and they packed it all into a map. Now with Bethesda, when they switched from this sort of fantasy genre to Fallout, they stuck to that Bethesda formula they knew and loved. Handcrafted quests, amazing worlds, but then they went over and switched to procedural generation in Starfield, as well as just taking everything that was amazing about their previous titles and getting rid of it, and when it goes ahead and actually fails, they blame the consumers. There was a numerous amount of reasons for why Starfield didn't perform or give the impression that Bethesda expected that it was going to get. Now when Bethesda originally announced this game, there was so much to actually be excited for. It was their first new IP after all in 25 years and was sold as Skyrim in space, with 1,000 plus planets to explore, but what we did get was very different from what we actually expected. And now when you see Nesmith finally saying what fans were screaming out from day one that the planets are repetitive, the enemies are boring, and the game's core just doesn't matter, the fact that a former game director is now admitting this after Bethesda doubled down for so long is absolutely mind-blowing. Now, to start with the biggest crime in Starfield, the procedural generation, Nesmith did nail it in the article. When the planets start to feel very samey and you don't feel the excitement on the planets is where it falls apart. Now, Starfield was sold entirely on its exploration, with these 1,000 planets, each a new frontier. But when you did land on one, it was just grey rocks, the recycled mining outpost, maybe some random spacer camp, rinse and repeat over and over again. By your 5th planet, you're yawning, and by the 50th, you're completely done with the game. Now, I remember when I first played and I landed on this lush world expecting to be some sort of alien jungles or glowing caves, but I found out I was on the same barren craters as the last one. It's like Bethesda really forgot what made their games special, handcrafted worlds packed with actual personality. Now, even when you go into the handcrafted parts of Starfield, like New Atlantis for example, it just doesn't feel the same. Now, why that is completely up to you. I maybe think that they put a little bit too much time into the shipbuilding aspects of it, or maybe these procedurally generated planets to really try and advertise it as a wider scope than it really was. As well as that, you also had the loading screen issue with Starfield, when you were meant to be seamlessly traveling between planets. In fact, that wasn't quite the case. There was a big black screen that would pop up, kind of hindering the fact that you are landing on a planet. And I'll do what everyone else has done. I'll make a comparison with a little game called No Man's Sky, who till this day is still getting an incredible amount of updates. And oh yeah, you could actually seamlessly travel between planets and land on them in your ship. Now, at launch, No Man's Sky had very similar procedural woes, but Hello Games spent years adding biomes, wildlife, and even story beats to make the planets feel actually alive. Starfield launched in 2023 with none of that depth whatsoever, no unique ecosystems, no hidden lore driven exploration. I don't even think with Starfield it's the fact that the planets don't just feel samey, but they also feel soulless, with no quests or landmarks that truly make you care. Now, in Starfield, I remember I wanted to go to Earth and see all of the landmarks around the world. Now, you had obviously little side quests that would allow you to find the coordinates for these locations, but when I went and saw it, I just saw one tower. I was hoping that I could at least see what was left of a previous city like New York or something else, you know, just something a bit more. I didn't really think that was too much to ask for. And then you have the enemy problem, with Nesmith quoted, "I was also disappointed when pretty much the only serious enemy you fought were people. There's loads of cool alien creatures, but they're like the wolves in Skyrim." And it's something I never ever really considered as a main issue in Starfield before I actually saw this quote from Nesmith, and it really made me realize, like, wow, that is actually so true. In a galaxy full of 1,000+ planets, you're gonna tell me that the only enemy that we fight, the only intelligent life form with like guns and technology, is humans? In Star Wars, for example, I know in the recent projects they've been toning a little bit down all of the aliens, which annoys me a lot, but we see so many different aliens that become Jedi, just their own, you know, colonies, actual people integrated within society. It's crazy, and you would think in Starfield you'd see something a little bit similar to that, but obviously not. Now, I wouldn't be able to tell you an exact reason for why Bethesda have done this, but if you want me to go ahead and try, I'm just going to say pure laziness, because that's what I've come to expect from this company. But yeah, overall, from what I have seen from both of these articles, with Nesmith talking about the failure of Starfield, I'm not too sure whether to be surprised or just used to this kind of behavior from them. Now, obviously, he doesn't work there anymore, but like I previously said in the video, I feel like it really shows us this sort of mentality that Bethesda have at their company. And yes, to give him credit, Nesmith did mention some key issues with Starfield, ones that Bethesda themselves couldn't really take accountability for, but I personally believe that's just his own opinion. I don't think the guys at Bethesda see it that way. I think they see it as we're ungrateful because that's just the way they are. And when you do really think about it, it is actually really sad to see the decline of Bethesda, especially in recent years. You only have to look at Fallout Day, which wasn't so long ago, to get a great idea of the direction they're still heading in as a company. They're giving us a Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition, which is very generous of them, of course. As well as that, they teased Fallout New Vegas in some sort of remaster, and then they just said you can go ahead and buy it with this massive $150 bundle. Yes, that is correct. $155 US for a game that is literally, with all of the DLC included, $5 on Steam as of right now. Do you see that as a way to reward fans for enjoying your games for the 15 years that they've been out? Or do you see it as a way to exploit the loyalty of the fans who are continually sticking with you for some reason? This is the new norm going forward. And it's going to happen again and again and again. But anyway, before I start gibbering some Dexter nonsense like I just did there, I'm going to end the video on here. It's not really any high sort of positive thing to end this video on, because there is nothing positive about Bethesda at the moment, especially with their accountability, or lack of, should I say. Under the guidance of the very selfless company Microsoft, I can only see this company getting even worse, even greedier, and even less innovative, and it's such a shame I have to say that, but that's just the reality of life. Let me know what you think in the comments anyway. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much for tuning in.